I expected that the jump in performance will be substantial, but in the end this computer blew my mind. But let's start from the beginning. Hey everyone, mariuszgajdzik here, and in this video I will tell you about my 4-month experience of using the 16-inch MacBook Pro with M2 Max in full spec. In February 2023, the time has finally come to swap my Intel MacBook Pro for a MacBook Pro with Apple Silicon, and it actually could happen with the purchase of the Sony FX3, as my 2018 full spec 15-inch MacBook Pro didn't really do that well with the 4K 10-bit footage, so I had to spend a lot of time creating proxies, and the export were so long I was able to go out to the city center for a coffee and a walk, and then, only then, when I come back home, the export were ready, but more about that later. I however wanted to wait for the M2 processors, so I don't feel like I bought a computer that's already on the market for a while. So as soon as the MacBook Pros with the M2 have been introduced, I decided to pull the trigger. I'm saying all that so you guys know from what angle I will be judging this laptop, and I will not compare it to the previous M1 model as I just didn't use it. I will talk more about the differences I feel after switching from the Intel in my 15-inch MacBook Pro and Martina's 27-inch iMac from 2020, also in full spec. I chose the 16-inch version as I use the built-in screen quite a lot, so I wanted to have the bigger one, and in the box we can also find the 140 watts USB-C power adapter and 2 meters USB-C to MagSafe 3 cable that we'll use for charging our laptop. And here there is a tiny little difference. Now it is color matched to the MacBook Pro, so in my case space gray, and in the M1 apparently it was always silver. The laptop is a bit larger and heavier than my older 15-inch MacBook Pro from 2018, however it is still pretty compact for a laptop with 16-inch screen. The specs I chose is the M2 Max processor with 12-core CPU, 38-core GPU and a 16-core neural engine, and I also chose 64GB of RAM and 1TB SSD, so apart from the upgrade in RAM up to 96GB and SSD up to 8TB, this is the most powerful config. And don't get me wrong, I'd love to have more SSD storage space, but this config already costs $3,899, and the extra SSD space is $400 for 2TB, $1,000 for 4TB, and $2,200 for 8TB. So no thanks, I prefer to use the external 2TB Samsung T7 SSD drive that costs about $130. When it comes to the ports, it's quite an upgrade for me because my 15-inch MacBook Pro from 2018 only had 4 USB-C Thunderbolt 3 ports and the headphone jack. Here I have 3 USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, a headphone jack, HDMI port, and the return of MagSafe in 3rd version, which I'm super happy about as I loved it in my even older 13-inch MacBook Pro from 2013. And we also get the SDXC card reader, and this makes my work much easier and makes me use SD cards over the CF Express Type A cards while using my Sony FX3 and Sony A7 IV cameras much more often, as it's just easier and quicker to copy the photos and footage this way than from the CF Express Type A card that I need to connect extra reader for. Additionally, the HDMI port is upgraded from the previous generation of MacBook Pros with M1 chip to 2.1 standard, which means that it works in 4K up to 240Hz and 8K up to 60Hz, which is a great for future-proofing, and I'm actually planning to use this laptop for at least 4 years, given how much money I've spent on it. We get a similar upgrade when it comes to the Wi-Fi with the Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth with 5.3 standard, so both really good standards and future-proof standards for those. The screen is just amazing. It is Liquid Retina XDR display in mini LED technology that has a resolution of 3456 but 2234 pixels and 16.2 inches diagonal. On the top we have a notch with the camera, and I really don't mind it being there as I barely notice it while using the laptop, as it perfectly blends in with the top menu bar. And the screen has a brightness SDR of 500 nits and XDR of 1000 nits with peak brightness of 1600 nits, so it's really bright. Additionally, it has ProMotion technology that gives us adaptive refresh rates up to 120 Hz, and that makes all the moving elements on the screen look really smoothly when we are moving them. HD FaceTime camera is totally fine for online meetings and in my opinion gives good enough image quality, and sadly we don't get the Face ID in the notes to use for unlocking our laptop similarly to iPhones, but what can we do? Keyboard is finally normal, and I had plenty of problems with previous generation keyboards, and just before I sold my old laptop I had to send it in for a free keyboard replacement. And I hope in this model everything will work as it should, and as of today it looks like it will. And we also don't have the touch bar, but I didn't like to use it, so I much prefer the physical buttons over here. Touchpad is just fantastic. I won't talk much about it. I will just say that when I don't work with extra screen at home at my desk like right now, I don't even bother taking my mouse with me. I can do it all with the touchpad. As with the other MacBooks Pro, the speakers sound pretty good. We have 6 speaker system over here, and I use them quite a bit to watch content, but also for video editing, and they definitely have enough loudness, and the sound they produce is pretty natural and pleasing. And when I want to be a little bit more isolated from the surroundings, I use my AirPods Pro 2nd gen or the other headphones with the cable, and this is perfectly fine for me. One thing that blew my mind was how long I can work on this laptop on battery, and that I can actually work on a full power of the computer without having to connect it to the charger. This has changed my work a lot. Now when I go out with the laptop to work at the cafe or while traveling, I don't need to charge it right away as I had to do with my previous laptop. Here I can easily edit videos in DaVinci Resolve on a battery for a long time. In the previous one I had to connect it to the charger quite quickly when I wanted to do so, and sometimes I'm actually quite confused after 2 days of working with that laptop on battery that it still isn't drained, because that's how good the battery life is. And of course here I'm not talking about the video editing, but more about research, script writing, emails, and occasionally watching a little bit of YouTube. And with this laptop I can actually really use this battery life while I'm using it and working on it. And Apple is claiming 22 hours of video watching from Apple TV app and 15 hours of internet browsing on Wi-Fi, and I believe this is pretty accurate, and it's kind of hard to explain it because you actually need to experience how long that battery life is to know how that works. But the biggest thing for sure is the possibilities that this config gives me, and in short, this laptop just encourages me to work. I don't have to wait for anything. Nearly everything happens in real time, and it just has made me more productive. And you can actually see there is even more YouTube videos on this channel, as I can just make them more quickly and more efficiently. And I won't bore you with too many tests. I will just show you a couple of benchmark scores and then tell you how this computer handles my work. And I'm actually mainly using it for photo and video editing, and that's what we will be focusing on. So we're gonna start with the benchmarks, and first benchmark was Cinebench, and the single core scores are as follows. My old MacBook is 1083, my iMac was 1250, and my MacBook M2 Max was 1611. So you can already see a lot of difference over here. When it comes to multi-score, the old MacBook was 6032, the iMac was 12834, so quite a lot more than the old MacBook, but still the M2 Max MacBook is higher with 14,576, so you can see there is a lot more power over here when it comes to the processing power with multi-core. The second benchmark is Geekbench, and the single core scores are as follows. The old MacBook has 1406, the iMac has 1532, and the M2 Max MacBook Pro has a much bigger score of 2637, so quite a lot of improvement over here. When it comes to the multi-core score, the old MacBook has a 5543, the iMac has a 5640, and the MacBook Pro with the M2 Max has a massive score of 14,339, which makes it much more powerful than the others. In compute metal scores, the old MacBook Pro has a 34,245 score, the iMac has a 54,082 score, and the M2 Max MacBook Pro has a 135,318 score, which again is much higher than the others. The compute OpenCL scores, the old MacBook has a 24,476, the iMac has a 78,993, and the MacBook Pro with M2 Max has a 83,372, so there is not a huge difference over here. But with the Apple Silicon, we gonna be using mainly the metal computing, so the previous score is more important. Okay, so now let me tell you how it works when it comes to photo editing. And when it comes to Lightroom, it just blasts through photos like none other computers use. And in Photoshop, it's pretty much the same. So we have the photos out of the way. There's not too much to talk about over here, as this powerful of a computer will handle pretty much any photo editing related task I can think of without any problem. But the video editing will be a bit more demanding, and I'm using the DaVinci Resolve to edit my videos. And on my max specs 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro, I wasn't able to play 4K HEVC-S footage from my Sony FX3 even on full HD timeline, so I had to do a lot of proxies and it still didn't work too well. And the 2020 full spec 27-inch iMac was able to play that footage on full HD timeline, but not too much on 4K, but it still worked better while using proxies. And my M2 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro just rips through all the footage I can possibly record on my Sony FX3 on 4K timeline. I don't have to create any proxies. I can just sit down, put my footage in the project and edit what I want to edit while seeing my footage in full quality in real time. And just the fact I can work this way is a huge time saving for me. But now I will also talk about the export times from all of those computers I talked about. And I have exported two different projects from my 2TB Samsung T7 SSD drives to the same drive, and this is how long it took. And the first video I exported was 4K vertical video that was 54 seconds long, and I exported it in H.265 codec with 80k kilobits per second. And my MacBook Pro, the old MacBook Pro, took 2 minutes and 36 seconds, the iMac took 1 minute and 15 seconds, and the MacBook Pro smashed them all with 51 seconds. And the second video I exported was 4K video that was 60 minutes and 11 seconds, and I exported it in H.265 codec with 80k kilobits per second. And my old MacBook Pro took 55 minutes and 6 seconds, the iMac took 28 minutes and 56 seconds, and the M2 Max MacBook Pro smashed them with 17 minutes. And while I was expecting a big jump in performance, I wasn't expecting it will be this huge. This laptop has blew my mind with this. It gives me freedom to create I didn't have before. So for this moment, for my needs, this is the perfect computer. The laptop with 16-inch screen that's very portable thanks to its size and weight, that has a great battery life that makes me use it more often outside of the house. Many more ports that in the previous one, great speakers and keyboard and touchpad, as well as good enough HD camera for online meetings. And what's most important for me, thanks to the max spec, the power of this laptop lets me work without wasting any time. And they say that time is money, and I value my time a lot. So if you're wondering if it's worth it, yes, it is really worth it. And I believe since this config grips so much, the weaker ones should work really great too. So it might be worth considering if you need this mighty of a laptop, because maybe you don't and you may be able to spend less. If you have any questions or anything to add, leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos similar to this one. And I will also be grateful if you follow me on Instagram, where I try to post daily about what's up with me and what I'm currently working on. This is everything for this video. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. Bye.